of the project. So you can see that while the construction is happening, how the logistics are placed, how the construction equipments are placed, how I mean, it can be used for safety and logistic planning. So animation is very, very crucial in the part of the Navisworks workflow. So now let's come to the next part is what does Naviswork comes as a product? So there are three product line in the Naviswork, which is Freedom, Simulate, and Manage. Freedom is a free software which you don't need any subscription. I mean, what does Freedom do is it's a basic design review software. That means you can open the models and review it and view the model from the inside and outside by federating the model into the workspace of Navisworks. Navisworks Simulate is also an entry-level software where it reads all the formats and it works with Autodesk Construction Cloud. And all the tools which you have in the Navisworks Manage. Manage is a complete software. Except clash detection, everything can be done in Navisworks Simulate. But Manage comes with a premium subscription for Autodesk, where it reads all the formats. When we say all the formats means software formats, interoperability. Like for example, it reads formats from Autodesk, it reads Autodesk all software formats like Revit, AutoCAD, and any other format, Inventor, and so on. So it has all the tools, including the clash tools. So this is the soft, for the soft landing of the project, this software is used. And what are the file formats? Now, the file formats that Navisworks can take. So as we discussed yesterday, is the IFC format is the global format for drawing exchange. So definitely for the AEC collections, it basically supports the IFC formats. It supports the ArchiCAD files format. It supports the MicroStation file format. It supports the Revit format. It supports the SketchUp format, and there are many other AEC collection format that it supports. When it comes to manufacturing domain, it supports formats from CATIA, SolidWorks, Pro Engineers, IGES, STP. So you can see the collection is very huge, and these are the file formats it supports. And when it comes to the point cloud, it supports recap format, that is from Autodesk Recap. It supports from Faro. Faro format is again a format for the point cloud. Faro is an equipment through which you can take all the scanned images. Leica is another instrument for scanned images. So all type of formats for the point cloud. So what is a point cloud? Point cloud is basically the scan data that you take from the site or the data capture that you have from the site and bring it to Navisworks for coordinating inside it. So this is something about the file format that it supports. Now, in Navisworks, there are 3 file formats. So you can name it and you can find out what exactly it is. NWC format, NWD format, and NWF format. Now, NWC format is a cache format. Now, one thing very important to understand is, very important to understand is what is the why these file formats are important and what is the difference. Before I give you the difference between these file formats, one thing very important to understand is the files of Navisworks are very light. That means it is in KBs or MBs, unlike the file format in Revit or any other BIM software, it goes to gigabytes. But when it comes to Navisworks, these file formats are very light in KB and MB. So that's the reason why it can be used so easily and it can be interoperator transferred. So be it a cache format. So cache format is what? For example, if you have a model in Revit and if you basically export or you take it to the Navisworks, it creates a cache file between. Now, cache file is an intermediate file between the parent software, let's say Revit is an example, and Navisworks. Now, cache format is an intermediate format. For example, you create a model in Revit. Now, when you create this model in the Revit, right? So Right. Let me have this one. Okay. When you create a model in the Revit and you export this model to Naviswork, what will happen is the the there will be one format that will be there is NWC format. So Naviswork file, when you save the Naviswork file, you save it as NWF format. But when you're bringing it from Revit, another file format will be there, NWC. That means if there is an interlink between Revit and Naviswork. Now, why this interlink is? Because whatever changes you make in Revit, that changes will become in Naviswork. That means there is a coordination between these two file format. That means if you change something in the Revit file, it reflects in the NWC file, and then that NWC file reflection will come to the NWF file. So NWF file is a referencing file, which is a Naviswork data file. Now the cache file is the intermediate file. That means whatever the data set it is been there, it is a very light file in kilobyte, in KBs, or sometimes in 1 MB. So this file format is basically very light, which contains the link between the parent file and the NWF file. So cache file is an export file which contains the geometries and properties, the link between the parent file. NWF file is the Naviswork data file that you work. Now, once you create a NWF file and you want to publish that file as a final file, you create a Naviswork data file, which contains all the data information inside the Naviswork workflow. That means whatever value engineering you have done, clash reports or quantification, everything, that data, hundreds and hundreds of data that are compiled during the Naviswork operation will be published through the NWT file. So at the end, when you are publishing the Naviswork file, it should be NWT file. So there are three file formats which are to be understood. One is the NWC file, NWF file, and NWT file. NWC file is an export file. That means whenever you export any model from Revit or any other software, an intermediate file will be formed. And then when you open it in Naviswork, you save it as an NWF file. The NWC file will be a link between the NWF file and the Revit file. And then when you work on NWF file, you do the clash detection, you do the animation, you create the viewpoints, all data will be saved in the NWD file, which is the final file format. So that's how Navisworks works. So I think I'm able to make you understand about the file format. Now let's open Naviswork and see how does it work. Now let's say if I am opening a sample file over here. So here in the sample file, let's say you have different types of file formats you can see here. Let's say I take this file of this getting started. So here I can see that there is a Naviswork cache file. Now you can see that it is 849 KB MEP. So whenever you start opening this file, let's say you open this architecture file over here. So it is a cache file that is being created. It's a very light file. And then when you save the file in Navisworks, you have the file format that you're going to save it as NWF format. Or when you're going to publish the file, you're going to save it as NWD file. So this is the file format that you are going to work in Navisworks. So I think you have understood about what are the file format that you should look forward for Navisworks. Now, another thing that you should look into it, the next part is after the file format that we have is the how you are going to open the file. Now, when you are opening the file, it opens a new session, creates NWC of CAD or BIM data that can be hidden. Now adds a CAD BIM file to current session, change behavior with anyway, and merge is to for multiple Naviswork files, merge duplicate geometries and properties. So there are three operations that you have over here. First is opening the file, appending the file, and merging the file. Let's see the application. Now, whenever you go here in Naviswork, let's say here, first of all, you need to understand the graphical interface of Navisworks. In the graphical interface of Navisworks, at the top, you can see that this is the ribbon over here. In the ribbon, there are various tabs over here that you have learned. You have the home tab, you have the viewpoint tab, you have the review tab, you have the animation tab, the view tab, output tab, render tab, and so on. Apart from that, if you click right, you can see that you can have different options over here. Let's say show tab, you can show the home tab, viewpoint tab. If you don't want to see the BIM 360 tab, you can just click on, and you can basically, what you can do is, right. So here you can basically change the way the ribbon is looking forward for. And then you have got show panels, right? Apart from that, if you want to basically remove any panel, you can remove it. Similarly, in the tab also, let's say you don't require the BIM 360 tab, or sometimes, you need to click on because of the mouse. Sometimes it happens. So you can try over here. So there is a click over here. You need to click it in order to put it off. Anyway, now see the output is off over here. So here, if you want to bring it again, show tab, and then click here, the output will be coming over here. So these are the tabs. Now, what does this tab do? First of all, home tab. In the home tab, you have got most of the tools that can be used. Now, what are the tools that you have? The first thing that you do is basically in the home tab, you append the file. Now, what is appending the file? I'll show you. First of all, here at the top, now in the home tab, you have got the project where you are going to append the project, where you're going to refresh the project. Refreshing means that if you have a link between a Revit and a Navisworks, you're going to refresh it to make the latest change that had happened in Revit, right? And then you have this reset all, where basically if there is some overrides that has been made, for example, you change the color of this, suppose you make a change of the movement of this, you can basically reset all the files to the default function. And then there is a file options over here where you can see that there are different parameters for the file to be looked into it. For example, if you see the scene light, you can change the ambient light of it and how it look like in the scene light. And there are different type of options that you can do, but I'm not going to go with the application currently, but just to make sure that you understand what exactly these tools are about. And then here in the select and search panel, it's basically searching the data sets. For example, in the select, how you're going to select the object. For example, if I go with the select option, if I click on the wall, I'm selecting the wall. And if I put it over here, you can see that it mentions it is an exterior brick on metal stud, and these are the properties that is coming. Okay. And then apart from that, there is option for save selection, selection tree, and so on. So I'll do some exercises to make you understand about how it works. So here you have the clash detective, timeliner, quantification. Most of the tools that is required for the workflow of BIM are present here. For example, if I want to go with the clash detective tool, you can see that the clash detective dashboard is there. So we will do one exercise about how to see a clash detection in the model. Similarly, the timeliner, where basically you can see that 4D and 5D can be used over here. So here you can add a task over here. For example, any task that you want to do, right? You can add the Gantt chart over here. You can see the Gantt chart is available over here. And there are a lot of calendars over here that you can mention over here. So there are a lot of activities that you can do in the timeliner. Similarly, in the quantification, you can basically create a project for finding out the BOQ of this particular model that has been brought from different softwares. Right now, it is a Revit model that you have brought. So and then for the Autodesk rendering or for the animator, you have another dashboard where you can create animations of the different equipments, of the different objects inside the Navisworks. So the home tab mainly consists of the tools, the displays, the visibilities, everything you can do from the home tab of the Navisworks Manage. So here the software, this is the tab, this is the panel, and here in the panel, you have the tools that has to be worked. Now, let's come to the next part. What is the typical workflow of the Navisworks? Now, as I said that whenever you work on different file format, like the Revit or IFC file format or the drawing format and other things. So you can see that you are creating a link between. So for example, if I am creating a Revit file, if I want to bring it to Navisworks, I'm creating a link between the Revit file and the Navisworks file format, which is a live file. And with this, you can see that for every file format, there is an NWC, which is a cache file which is created. So whenever, now, how do we export into NWC? That is another question that basically you need to create an add-in over here where basically export to NWC is an add-in, or directly what you can do now, see in the Revit over here, you don't have an export option over here. Directly you can export it as an NWC file. But what you can do is you can directly open a Revit file, for example, in Navisworks. Now, let's say I have this model over here. And if I save this model, and how do I open it in Navisworks? Give you a basic example, because I don't have an NWC exporter currently, but you need to have a plugin which is called an NWC exporter. So if you don't have an NWC exporter, what will happen if you save a file? Let's say I'm saving this project here in the desktop. And this is, let's say I name it as Navis file. And I'm saving this 3D view over here. So I'm at a 3D view. And now let's say if I want to open the file over here, let's say, so I click here in the NITTTR and directly I can open the Revit file from the folder. Now what it is happening is it is converting the model into a NWC file while it is opening, and then it will be bringing it into the Navisworks. So this is how you create a link between the Revit file and the Navisworks files. It will take some time before we go to the process. So with the NWC exporter, if you have an NWC exporter, which is a plugin that you can Google it and find out, it will be added to Revit. You can use the NWC exporter to directly export the model as an NWC file, which is a cache file, and then you can bring it directly, open it in Navisworks and create that particular link. Now, so this is the file format. Let this happen. Now, these are the typical workflow. That means you're working in Revit, you're creating an NWC file, you're then refreshing it. That means whenever there is a change in the Revit model, it will be refreshed in the file. Now, let me see. Okay, could not be because the contents are corrupt or it is unavailable. So there might be some problem over here. Anyway, so there is always a problem that is happening. So it's advisable to open it as an NWC file. Anyway, so this is then when you refresh it, the model is getting refreshed and new updates will be seen in the NWF file. And then later on, when you are basically giving the weekly progress to your team, it is the NWD file that basically you are delivering. So here we have the navigation part. So here in the navigation part, you can navigate to the entire model. Now let's take an example here. So how do we navigate into the model? So here in this particular Navisworks, I'm opening a file. You can also open when you have time, open the sample file. Again, you go to the getting started and then you have the architecture model over here. That's an NWC file. Open this file. Now you have this architecture model. Now in the left hand side, you can see it's the UID. That is the coordinates that you can see X, Y, Z, and it's a UID, user ID or global coordinate. It's over here, which you can see it over here. Now here in this right hand side, you have a view cube. You can change the view cube. You can click on the home. You can see the model placed over here. And then you can open the selection tree here and click in the selection tree here and click the selection tree at this moment. Now here you have the selection tree that you have opened, and you can see in the selection tree, there is 3 options: standard, compact, and properties. So in the standard selection, you have the architecture, And in the architecture, you can see that the model has been created in different layers. Now, for example, you have the first layer, and then you have the main floor, and you can see the floor has been selected. Now, how does Naviswork works? What is the beauty of this software is you can go and select up to the layer of the object. So I'll talk about what is a layer of the object, but here we have brought this model over here, which is created into different, NWC file. So first of all, here, what we have done, we have opened the file. Now, next, what you are going to do, you cannot open another file like the structure. You're going to append the file. Now, there is a structure model that has been brought from Revit. So what you can do, you can click on the append here. Okay, you can click on the append here and then bring the structure file over here. Now, you can see the structure model is appended along with the architecture model. Now you can see that this is the architecture file, this is the structure file. Structure file has its own layer like this, you can see, and the architecture file is having its own layer. Now you want to look at one by one, I will show you how to do it. So this is the selection tree. You can bring this selection tree in the left hand side over here, right? Or you can close it. It is in the left hand side. You can basically, you cannot toggle it or dock it somewhere at this moment. Now, you need a bigger screen space for Naviswork. The next, what you're going to do is you're going to append another model, which is the structure model, MEP model. Give me some time. So I'm just opening the PPT. So here, what we will do, we will see how we can view inside, how we can look around, how we can go inside, how we can check, how we can review. These are the things that we are going to see in the Navisworks. So here you have the append. Now you're going to append into the MEP. Here you are appending the MEP. Now you have got all the three disciplines which are coordinated with each other at the same coordinate point. Now, the thing that what I would like you to understand is the view, how you are going to view. So in the viewpoint, now there is a view tab over here. In the view tab, you have this HUD, which is the heads up display, or the GUID that I talked about. So this HUID is XYZ or position readout. If you want to put it off, you can put it off. If you want to position readout, you can position readout. Now let me make you understand how you are going to view this model. First, what I'm going to do is in the home tab itself, I'm going to first of all show you all the three different models, how they work. For example, if I select the architecture and if I click here and say hide unselected, that means I can only see the architecture model. If I say unhide all, I'm in the home tab, it all are unhidden. If I select the structure one, structure NWC in the selection tree, and if I say hide unselected, I can see the structure model. If I say unhide all, I can see all the models. If I click on the MEP NWC, I can see the, if I say hide unselected, I can see only the MEP model. Now, how does this model works in selection? So I'm going very slow over here. So you can do this exercise by bringing all these three disciplines inside your Navisworks and look and deep into the model. Now, let's say if I wanted to know the properties of this particular pipeline over here. Now, here you can see that when you're selecting this pipe, let's say, so if I can go zoom it. So how can I zoom it? So I have this tool called over here in the view tool. I have got this tool as zoom window. So I can zoom this file and see this, and then I have this pan window by which I can pan it inside. Now, if I wanted to check the properties of it or any other thing of this, so first of all, I have to go to the to the home tab and say the selection part. Now, how I am going to select, it is very important. Now, let's say I'm going to rotate this one and show you the different equipments that is there. Now, this is the what is the property of this. So what you can do is you can select over here, put your mouse and see it is a round elbow duct fitting, right? If you select this one, this is the duct galvanized takeoff. If you select this object, you find the property as a VAV mechanical equipment. I'm talking about all the MEP stuff. Then we will come to the structure one. Apart from that, you can see the entire property of any element. For example, if I select this one, this is the quick property. So here the quick property is selected. That's the reason you can see the quick property in the home tab. If the quick property is chosen now, you can see the property. But if you want to see the whole property, now here what is happening in the selection tree, you can see the selection tree, the proper element is shown over here, and into which there are different elements inside which you can select. That means you are going inside the standard element, you're going towards the air-cooled chiller set, and there is a solid entity that you can see over here. Now, if you want to see the properties of this chiller, you can go to the properties and you can see that these are the some of the properties that you can see which are detailed out here. So similarly, if I want to see the property of this particular entity, which is, I don't know what it would be, but it is a 24 into 24 neck. So if I want to select it, it is a rectangular diffuser, a round connection air terminal. And if I want to see the properties, you can see the properties over here, which is, it's a Revit data, which is the top width, bottom width, everything is mentioned over here. So here is the selection criteria. Now about the unit, you might be wondering how to change the unit. So here in this particular application menu, you see that there are different options over here, in which there is a general option here and there is an interface option here. In the interface option, there is a display unit, and here you can change the display unit as meters, angular units are degrees, so you can change it to whatever units that you want to display. So that can be one of the questions that may have come. So how do you change a unit? Go to the application menu, options, and then under the interface heading, there's a display unit. You can change the display unit over here. Now this was a short briefing about the MEP elements. Now come back again, go top, and then here you have the, just collapse it and select all the MEP, the NWC, and unhide all. Now let's go with the structural part. Select the structure model, hide unselected, and now if you want to select the individual entities inside, so what you can do is you can select the individual entities here, and you can see the properties of these entities. How does it work? Now, for example, you can see it is in the first floor layer, in which you have this individual elements which can be selected here. And if you want to see the properties of it, you can see the properties of this, including which, what is the level, what is the base level, what is the section, what is the name, everything will come over here. So the point what I'm trying to say is object properties are retained irrespective of what software you bring into it, if the data is a BIM compliant data in Navisworks. So data is very important in Navisworks. So it is not the model, it is the data that is basically important over here. Similarly, if I want to check what is this entity all about, so it is it's a foundation. Now let's say if I select this entire object over here, so now the selection can be done through selection to layer. Let's say if I say select to layer, that means this entire basement will be selected. But if I go and say the selection to first object, that means it will be selected to the more inside it. So there is different type of selections that you can do in Revit, in Navisworks. Now let me make it clear what I am saying. For example, if I say that selection is totally into file, that means if I select the object, the entire file will be selected. If I say the selection is to the layer, that means it will select the particular layer completely in which it is there. For example, it is a basement layer. If I say the selection is to the geometry, that means it will go to the geometry level and select the object. So you can see that it goes to the nth layer to select the object and find out the information and do the value engineering into it, be it providing a clash report between these objects, be it providing a 4D simulation of this object with the timeline. That means you can go up to the nth level, or you can go up to the hardware level or to the fabrication level and deal with the objects uh, uh, data identification in Navisworks, which is not possible in softwares like Revit. So I'll give you another example. It's a typical example in architecture. So let me have this hide unselected, unhide all, and let's go to the architecture model. So let's take an example in the architecture model where I'm going to select and say hide unselected. So let's now go inside. Now, how we are going to go inside? One of the option is, let's say in the view, if you look into it, there is an option called here walk option. So you can walk inside the object like this, right? And then there is an option of orbit where you can orbit the object whatever you want. So you can use there's a navigation bar over here. You can see, you can use the pan data, you can use the orbit data to go inside the object like this. So now if you want to walk inside the object, now what you can do is you can create different viewpoints. Let's say, for example, if I'm walking inside, let's say I'm walking inside this room, let's say here, or let's say I'm walking inside this particular area. So I want to do an inspection of this particular building at the ground floor level. So I'm creating a viewpoint. Viewpoint is the point in which I'm going to create the inspection. So I'm here inside. So I'm creating a viewpoint. I want to go inside the room. So I click a walk option over here and I do a clear inspection. So with my help of the tools like pan, zoom and other things, I go inside this cafeteria, let's say. Here I go, right? And then with the, I can do a level up option. So I go here and I walk inside this room and I can use the orbit tool to orbit my view. And you can see that with this, I can create different viewpoints of this particular view. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk inside this particular room. I'm here inside. So you need a bit of exercise to walk inside. So here. Now what I'm going to do is I want to save this viewpoint over here as a cafeteria. So in Navisworks, you can save different kind of viewpoints while you are inspecting. For example, you want to check the ceiling height over here and you can inspect this particular place. So how you're going to create the viewpoint? So viewpoint is the point of the camera over here. Now here you have this viewpoint option and you can save the viewpoint over here and you can name this as cafeteria. So what will happen is at any moment of time, and now this file is getting saved over here. So you can select, you can move ahead and you can again, now you can see the viewpoint is saved over here as cafeteria. And then you can walk inside with the help of the walk tool. Let's say you're going to the walk tool over here. Now you want to move up. If you want to move up, there are options by which you can move up or move down. So you have this look around tool over here. Now how you're going to navigate inside the space. So I'm giving you very quick option so that you can understand about how Navisworks works. So let's say if I want to move up, I can use the pan key to come up over here. And then I can basically again use the walk tool to walk inside. So here I am at the different levels. So I can use this as a viewpoint as, let's say, I can save this viewpoint as save viewpoint and name it as V1 first. So I'm creating different viewpoints so that I can manage it later on. Now, another thing of moving ahead up above is by using a tool over here in the view, which is called reference views. Now, in the reference view, you have the plan view and you have the section view. It is in the view tab. Now, you can see here in the plan view, whenever you are moving inside, there is an arrow mark over here. So you can use the arrow mark to change your location. And in the section view, you can move your cursor up and you can locate where you want to go. Let's say I'm going up over here. In the plan view, I can change my location to a particular point. See here, right? And in the section view, I can move to this particular area. Let's say I'm over here at this area. So this is how these things can be controlled. So now let's say I wanted to go above. So this is one of the tools by which you can navigate through plan view and section view inside the building. Now, another thing is that what you can do is, so if you're walking inside, so walking inside it, right? And now what are the reviews that you can do? Now you can pan it and move up. Let's say you're going to the another floor, and then you can see that there is a office room over here at the top. So you can basically walk inside this office room or go inside. At any moment of time in the viewpoint, you can bring back to whatever you want. So also in the viewpoint, you can select the avatar over here as a third person, and there is a collision and gravity and crouch. So with this, you can see you can move with a person over here, and there, if there is a collision, Navisworks will see that there is a, you cannot move ahead because you have used the collision option in the realism over here, right? So this is how one thing that it makes it very real when you are moving in the Navisworks space. So let's say here you are, and then if you go ahead now, see you cannot move now here inside, and with the mouse, left mouse dragged in, you can click, and then you can have a pan key, you can change your direction, and you can always go inside. Now you want to walk inside. So see, and now what you need to do is you have to remove the collision to move inside. Now you're here. Now, this is something that a tool in Navisworks that we were talking about here as the viewpoint. So viewpoint is viewing the model. We talked about the saved viewpoint over here, about the properties, about the selection trees, and all of them. I hope you have understood the concept of, so what is a viewpoint? Viewpoint is a camera location, can also contain section, color overrides, markups, and comments. Now, what is the markup? Now, let's say you are inside a particular space, in a real space if you're moving, right? And then you want to basically, what you need to do is you need to capture the image. So you can capture an image, you can make a JPG out of it, and then this particular JPG will be saved at your model and you can share with your client. This is where I see there is an issue. Now, how are you going to mark the issue? To mark the issue, there is a review option over here in which you can basically measure it. Let's say you have an instrument of measuring. If you want to measure the height of this, so what you can do is you can click the measure over here. You can do a point-to-point measure over here. So you can see that it is 4.7 meters. And if you want to see the clearance between these two walls, you can always do a measurement. You can see this one. And then you can basically add a tag to it and say that this is the tag that I have this over here, and write a comment that measured. So now this particular, view would be saved. That means the important part of this is when you're adding a tag, when you're adding a comment, these are the databases that basically are very, very important in Navisworks. They are stored in the data. All the markups, like if you want to convert it to a markup, you can see that this particular view has been saved in the viewpoint. Now you can see that tag view one is saved. So any time in the NWD file, whenever you go, you can see the markups are there. So this is very, very important. I hope you guys are understanding and enjoying how Navisworks works. So we have got 5 minutes of time. I would like to show you some examples from how the 4D simulation works. I hope you have understood what Navisworks do and how do the viewpoint work. Now let me show you quick example of how 4D simulation works and how do clash detection works. So I'm opening a file over here. Let me give some time. So it's a very interesting software. I would wish that everybody